My name is Mark. I'm 39. My wife, Elena, is 37. We've been together for 11 years, married for 9. I'm from Ohio. She's from Oregon. We met during a 4th of July weekend in Chicago, the kind of coincidence that only makes sense in hindsight. Sparks, laughter, and a 7-hour road trip back to Columbus later, we never really looked back. These days, we live in North Carolina. Small town just outside Raleigh. Copper Ridge Lane. Quiet street. Kids on bikes. Retired couples who wave from their porches even when it's raining. We've been here 8 years. Long enough to put down roots and forget what it felt like not to have them. We've got 3 kids. Victor is 8. Luca just turned 6. And Anna, our little girl, is 3, sharp, stubborn, and already asking questions that make her sound twice her age. Elena hasn't worked since Victor was born. She used to be a graphic designer, but once motherhood took over, she never looked back. Said it was her calling. Said she wanted to be present, not just available. And I believed her. I work in logistics. Pretty standard hours. Monday through Friday, 8 to 4. It's not glamorous, but it's steady. And for years I thought that was enough. I thought we were enough. Our days followed a rhythm. Mornings were chaos. Cereal spills, shoe hunts, forgotten lunchboxes. But by the time I came home in the evening, things felt calm. Elena had this way of making our home feel lived in but never messy. There'd be dinner on the stove, some indie folk playing from the kitchen speaker, the kids drawing or building pillow forts in the living room. I'd take off my shoes, pour a glass of red, and we'd talk while she stirred something fragrant. Every Friday night was our date night. We'd drop the kids at her sister's place and head downtown, trying new restaurants, catching whatever movie wasn't animated. Sometimes we'd just sit in the car with milkshakes and talk like we were still 25. Those were the nights I lived for. We didn't fight much. Not really. A couple of heated arguments over parenting styles, the occasional stress spillover, but nothing serious. Nothing I thought could crack the foundation. We had what I thought was trust. Total access to each other's phones, shared calendars, joint finances. I never checked her phone. Didn't need to. I had no reason to. Until last Wednesday. I came home a little early, maybe 4:15. Parked out front instead of in the garage. It was a beautiful day, and the windows were open. That's when I heard her. She was in the kitchen on the phone. Her voice was soft. The kind of softness you don't reserve for just anyone. I miss you so much. I can't wait to see you this week. My stomach dropped. My pulse slowed in that strange way it does when your brain hasn't caught up to what your body already knows. 5 seconds later, she hung up. When I stepped into the house, she turned with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Hey, you're early." I asked her who she was talking to. "Kara," she said, brushing a piece of hair behind her ear. "She's still in Charleston. Just catching up." And she was right, Kara was in Charleston. I'd seen her stories on Instagram. The alibi checked out. But something in the way Elena said it felt rehearsed. Like someone reading lines they'd practiced in the mirror. That night she was extra sweet. Kissed me more than usual. Kept reaching for my hand across the dinner table. Asked if we should book a weekend trip for just the 2 of us. She played the part of a perfect wife, and I played along even though something had already shifted. The next day, I couldn't focus at work. The phone call looped in my head. I kept thinking, why hang up that fast if it's just a friend? At noon, I called her. "Hey, where are you?" "Home," she said. But I heard cars. A dog barking. Someone laughing. Not the sound of a quiet suburban kitchen. I didn't ask any more questions. Just hung up. Then I grabbed my keys and drove. 30 minutes later, I pulled into the driveway. Her car was gone. That night, she made baked ziti. Asked if I wanted to watch a comedy or a crime doc. She curled up next to me on the couch, her head on my chest. Like nothing had changed. Like she hadn't just lied to me that morning. And maybe that's what hurt the most. Not the possibility of cheating, but how easily she could smile through it. At 2 a.m., I slipped out of bed. Her phone was on the nightstand. Still unlocked. Still wide open. She never thought I'd check. And that was her first mistake. Inside, a hidden photo folder, text threads, videos, a name I didn't recognize. A man, white, late 20s, tattoos, watches, shirtless gym selfies. The kind of guy who looks like he only owns 2 shirts but flies first class. His Instagram was full of parties, Lamborghinis, yachts. He wasn't local, but she'd met up with him. For times, maybe 5. There were messages from mornings when I was at work. Afternoons when she said she was out with friends. Nudes. Voice notes. Heart emojis. She called him things she hadn't said to me in years. And I just stood there in the dark, holding the phone like it was burning in my hands. I should have woken her up. I should have thrown the phone against the wall. But I didn't. Because part of me needed more. Not to punish her, but to understand just how deep the rot went. The next morning, Elena woke up like nothing had happened. She stretched, rolled toward me, and murmured something about her dream. Something domestic. A kitchen, a spilled smoothie, and a dancing in her pajamas. She laughed and kissed my chest. I stared at the ceiling. I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask her how long she'd been lying. I wanted to beg her to say it meant nothing, just a stupid thrill, a midlife panic. But all I did was nod and say, sounds like a mess. Because I wasn't ready. Not yet. I needed to know everything. And once you decide to pretend, just for a while, that everything's okay, it's shocking how well you can play the part. I made coffee. She packed lunches. We kissed at the door like we always did. But inside, something was hollowing out in me. Every smile I gave her felt like a lie. Every look at our kids felt like theft. Like I was stealing from them the life I thought we had. That day at work, I couldn't concentrate. Emails went unanswered. Meetings blurred. I kept seeing that man's name in my head. I kept hearing Elena's voice, soft and needy, I miss you so much. I told my best friend Aaron that night. We were out at our usual dive bar, the Rusted Nail, dark, sticky floors, cheap beer, walls covered in license plates and broken promises. He could tell something was off the second I sat down. What's going on, man? He asked. I didn't say anything at first. Just pulled out my phone, opened the messages, and slid it across the table. He scrolled. Stopped. His eyes widened. Jesus Christ, he whispered. I nodded. How long? Best guess? A month. Mark, you sure it's not some idiot she met online? Like a fantasy thing? I shook my head. They met. She sent pics from his condo downtown. I matched the view. It's the 32nd floor of the Skyhouse Tower. She's been there. He sat back, exhaled through his teeth. You gonna confront her? I want to. But if I do it now, she'll deny it. Delete everything. Cry. Say it was a phase. I need more. I need to know how deep this goes. Aaron nodded slowly, then took a long sip of his beer. Well, he said. I hope you're ready. Once you know everything, you can't unknow it. Over the next few days, I watched her. I became someone else. Not a husband and observer. She smiled the same. Laughed the same. She still made her lists on the chalkboard in the kitchen. Still reminded Luca not to pick at his food and brushed Anna's hair into little braids that morning. The routine didn't crack. But I did. I watched how often she checked her phone when she thought I wasn't looking. How she left it face down on the counter, always. How she took longer errands than usual, and how her smile sometimes came with just a half-second delay, like it had to travel from somewhere else first. That Friday, she went out for another girls' night. It was Kara again. I didn't ask questions. Just helped her pick her shoes. Kissed her goodbye. Told her to have fun. Then I followed her. She drove to downtown Raleigh, parked 2 blocks off Glenwood Avenue, and walked past the tapas place she and Kara loved. Past the wine bar. Past everything that looked like a girls' night. And straight into the lobby of the Skyhouse Tower. She used the call box. Waited. Smiled. Looked over her shoulder once. Then the door buzzed and she was gone. I sat in my car and stared at the building, my knuckles bone white on the wheel. I didn't follow her up. I didn't need to. She was there for 2 hours. When she came out, her hair was different. Not a mess, but looser. Her lipstick had faded. She checked her phone, smiled again, then walked back to her car like nothing in the world could touch her. When she got home, she kissed me on the cheek and curled up next to me on the couch. Said Kara had a rough night and needed to talk. I nodded. I smiled. I asked if they had wine. Too much, she said with a laugh. You'd have hated it. She fell asleep beside me. And I lay there staring at her, this woman I loved more than I understood, now suddenly unfamiliar. The truth was out there now. I had no more doubts. But I still didn't have a plan. By Saturday morning, something had shifted. I stood in the kitchen, watching Elena crack eggs into the frying pan like she hadn't lied to me for a month straight. Like she hadn't kissed another man's neck the night before, then come home to warm blankets and familiar skin. She hummed a song I didn't recognize. Her hips swayed a little as she flipped the eggs. I stared at the back of her neck and wondered if he'd kissed her there too. I couldn't eat. Every movement she made felt artificial, too practiced, too perfectly placed. And maybe that was the worst part. She still knew exactly how to play the role. She still made it easy for me to pretend even when everything inside me was curdling into something darker. I started tracking everything. Not just her. Me. The lies I told to match hers. The excuses I made. The smiles that felt like stretching skin across a bruise. I checked her phone again Sunday night while she showered. She hadn't deleted anything. She just moved it deeper, tucked into hidden message threads, renamed contacts, photos buried in folders marked grocery list and family recipes. I found one video. She was sitting on someone's lap, giggling, a glass of wine in one hand. Her voice was breathy, flirty, completely unfamiliar. She was wearing the necklace I gave her for our anniversary. I stared at the screen until my hands started to shake. That night, we had getting close. I didn't want to, but I did. Because part of me needed to see if she'd flinch. If she'd hesitate. If there'd be even 1 second of guilt in her eyes. There wasn't. She moaned my name like she always had. Kissed my chest afterward. Whispered I love you like it was sacred. And I lay there, cold and hollow, like a man waiting for a verdict he already knows is guilty. Monday morning I called a lawyer. Nothing official. Just an inquiry. I didn't want a divorce, not yet, but I needed to know what I was dealing with. The legal side. The custody side. The money. Because Elena hadn't worked in almost a decade. And if this ended, I'd be the one left holding the bag and fighting for the kids. But more than that, I didn't know if I wanted her gone. Not yet. I didn't know what I wanted at all. Only that I couldn't live like this much longer. She was lying to my face. And I was letting her. That night, I watched her sleep. She looked peaceful. Like someone who'd already made her choice. And I realized something terrifying. I hadn't lost her. Not yet. She was still mine. But only because she didn't know I knew. And once I let that truth out into the world, everything would break. So I didn't sleep. I sat up in the dark and stared at the woman who was still my wife, and wondered how long I could keep pretending. On Monday night, I started Googling how to pretend your wife isn't cheating on you. It turns out that there is no WikiHow for this. There is no checklist. There is no 5-step plan to keep your heart from curling up like a dead leaf. Although there was a thread on Reddit. One guy suggested keeping a poker face and drinking bourbon until you stop caring. Another simply wrote, Jim? Lawyer. Tan. This made me laugh. Not because it was useful, but because I hadn't even thought about the gym in 5 years and the only tan I had was a tan I got while mowing the lawn in July. And yet, I bookmarked it. That's where I was mentally, using gym memes and whiskey jokes to keep myself from breaking down. I was living 2 lives. In one, I was a good husband, the guy who made pancakes for dinner because the kids asked for them and still picked up Elena's dry cleaning without being reminded. The guy who smiled at parent-teacher conferences and helped Victor with his math homework even though 4th grade fractions made me feel like an idiot. Otherwise, I was a detective in my own damn house. A quiet stalker with a wedding ring. I tracked her calendar through her message history. I checked the mileage of her SUV when she said she only went to Target. I found receipts she never intended to keep, coffee shop bills, Uber rides that started downtown and ended nowhere but where Kara lived. It became a game. Twisted, miserable, addictive. One day I found a rolled-up receipt from a sushi bar in the glove compartment. 2 meals. A bottle of wine. The timestamp was 5:32 p.m., the night she told me she'd been to a fitness class. I stared at that piece of paper as if it were radioactive. Later that night, she asked me if I wanted to watch a movie. I said yes. We curled up under the same blanket, her legs tucked under my leg, and watched Knives Out. She laughed at the jokes. She was out of breath from the turns. I kept thinking how poetic it would be if I poisoned her tea and got away with it in the 3rd act. Calm down. I didn't do that. But still, I confess, I stopped once or twice, looked at the cup in her hands and thought, this is how villains are born. The gallows humor helped me get through that week. When she said, I have to run to the store quickly, I replied, will you be back at midnight, or should I text your boyfriend if you're late? She blinked and then forced herself to laugh. What? Nothing, I smiled. Just kidding. When she left, I watched the door close and whispered, 1 point, to the salesman. By Friday, I had already mentally started nicknaming the versions of Elena she played. Morning Elena, sweaty sportswear, a kiss on the cheek, coffee with oat milk, texting before the car even leaves the parking lot. Alina's mom, backpack carrier, lunchbox packer, hater of Luke's endless dinosaur facts. Wife Alina plans candlelit dinners, wears a long sweater, kisses me on the forehead from time to time. And then there was another one. His Elena. The perfume is a little stronger. The lipstick is sharper. Laughter, somehow lighter. This Elena didn't need me. And she did not know that I was watching her. That Saturday I tried to relieve the tension. We went out with the whole family. Bowling, cheap pizza, bumper cars. Elena smiled as if she meant it. I smiled as if I didn't want to throw my phone out the window. Later, when the kids were asleep, she leaned on my shoulder and whispered, "I love nights like this." Me too. I used to. But all I could think about was how many nights she had said that to him. I nodded. Yeah, that was good. And I realized that is the cruelest part of it all. Not getting close. Not the lying. Not even the cover-up. But how easy it was for her to act as if nothing had changed. As if we were still the same people. As if I didn't see the truth every time I looked at her. It was Sunday morning when I finally cracked. Elena was standing in front of the bathroom mirror, applying mascara with the precision of someone who didn't believe in consequences. The kids were downstairs watching cartoons. I had coffee in my hand and a decision in my chest. I'd spent 3 weeks pretending. 3 weeks smiling through the lie. 3 weeks building a fortress of evidence, watching her, measuring the depth of every deception. But I couldn't do it anymore. I watched her, that calm expression, the soft hum she always made when she did her makeup. She didn't even flinch when I said her name. Elena. She looked up at me in the mirror. Yeah? I stepped closer, set my coffee down on the counter. I know. She froze. Didn't ask what? Didn't blink. Just stared at me, her mascara wand hovering midair. I know about him. I know about the messages. The pictures. I know about Skyhouse Tower. I know about the sushi place. I know it all. The silence was so sharp it cut the air between us. For a second, I thought she might deny it. Might laugh and call me crazy. Might twist it like I was the paranoid one, the overworked husband spiraling into insecurity. But she didn't. She lowered the wand, set it down gently, and said nothing. Just looked at me in the mirror like I'd caught her leaving a crime scene with blood on her hands. How long? I asked. She turned, leaned back against the sink, crossed her arms like she was cold. A month, she said. Maybe 6 weeks. I nodded. And you were going to tell me when? She exhaled. I don't know. Don't know? I laughed dry and sharp. Were you waiting until you got bored of him? Or until you caught something you needed antibiotics for? Her eyes narrowed. That's not fair. Oh, fair, I said, taking a step toward her. You want to talk about fair? You've been lying to me, to our kids, to everyone who thinks we're the happy couple with the Pinterest life. I've been sleeping next to you while you text another man. Smiling while you sneak around like some teenager in heat. Tears welled in her eyes, but I wasn't moved. Not anymore. You don't get to cry, I said. You lost that privilege. She looked away, biting her lip. It didn't mean anything. That line, that pathetic, broken record of a line. It didn't mean anything, I repeated, nodding. Right? That's why you sent him nudes. That's why you told him you missed him. That's why you said you felt alive again. Her eyes snapped back to mine. You read everything? I did, I said. Every word. Every emoji. Every lie. She covered her face with both hands, trembling. And for a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Then I remembered the video. Her in his lap, giggling like a schoolgirl while I sat at home helping Victor build a solar system model out of foam balls. I want a divorce, I said. She gasped like I'd hit her. Mark? No. No more chances. No counseling. No, it was just a phase. We're done. She slid down the wall and sat on the tile floor, arms wrapped around her knees. The strong, capable Elena I once adored now looked small. Fractured. Like the real version of herself had been buried beneath layers of lipstick and lies. I never stopped loving you, she whispered. I stared at her. Then why did you throw everything away? I don't know. You don't know. I barked. You just tripped and fell into his bed 4 times? I felt invisible, she snapped, suddenly angry. You were always working. Always tired. The only time you looked at me like I mattered was when the kids were asleep or we were on vacation. I needed more. So you cheated. I made a mistake. No, I said, stepping back. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk. You made a choice. Over and over. We didn't talk the rest of that day. She stayed locked in the bedroom. I stayed downstairs with the kids who had no idea that their perfect little world had just shattered. Later that night, I sat in the backyard, sipping whiskey under the stars, wondering how love could rot from the inside out and still wear a smile. I wasn't heartbroken. Not anymore. I was just done. The next morning after I told Alina that I wanted to get a divorce, the house was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of silence that shouldn't be in a house with 3 children under 10. It seemed that something had died in the walls. Maybe it was. Alina did not come downstairs. I made the children breakfast as usual, pancakes with chocolate chips cut the way Anna likes, diagonally because apparently triangles taste better than squares. Victor asked where his mom was. She's just resting, I said. A half-truth. I couldn't tell them that she was in our room crying over the man she cheated on me with, and I was downstairs trying not to burn the eggs. I took them to school and drove past my office. I ended up in an empty park somewhere in the city center. I sat on a bench for more than an hour just watching the squirrels chasing each other as if they didn't know what betrayal was. I envied them. Now everything was different. It wasn't just that Alina was with someone else. It was that it poisoned the whole story we had built. The wedding album was like a fiction. Anniversaries, baby showers, even inside jokes, all of it suddenly had a disgusting taste, as if I had bitten into something sweet and found it full of rot. I did not cry. Although I wanted to. I tried to. But I was too numb. Instead, I started thinking about mundane things: who would get the house, how we would tell the kids, what I would do with the basement full of forgotten junk that we both promised to clean out next spring. When I returned, she was in the kitchen. With her hair up. No makeup. Wearing the same sweatshirt she had worn in the early days when we were broke and living in a tiny apartment with second-hand furniture and too much love. For a second, I saw that girl again. Then I blinked and she was gone. Can we talk? She asked. I nodded. I sat down across from her. There were no lawyers yet. There were no papers. Just 2 people sitting at the kitchen table that used to be so warm in the morning. She tried to speak. She tried again. Then she gave up and gave me her phone. I deleted it. I looked down. She had blocked his number. Erased the messages. She erased the photos. Too late. She was trying to fix a crime after the verdict had already been handed down. I know this doesn't fix anything, she said in a small voice. But I want you to know that I am done with him. With all of it. I hung up the phone. You know what hurts the most? I asked. It's not the photos. It's not even the getting close. It's the fact that you made me feel crazy for being suspicious. You looked me in the eye every day and made me think I was making it all up. I didn't know how to stop, she said, crying. As soon as it started, it was like it filled this hole in me that I didn't even know existed. Then maybe, I said, standing up, you should have told me about that hole before you looked for someone else to fill it. She covered her face with her hands. Her shoulders shook. I didn't feel satisfied. Or victory. Only exhaustion. I slept in the guest room that night. Not because I had to. Because I couldn't lie next to her one more time. I spent hours staring at the ceiling, counting the slow clicks of the ceiling fan and wondering when the pain would hit me in full force. But it never came. Only silence. Cold, numbing silence from the realization that the person you trust the most has taken a match to everything you've built and let it burn. Grief doesn't always show up screaming. Sometimes it walks in barefoot in the middle of the night and just sits with you while you stare at your ceiling fan. That's how it started for me. 3 nights in the guest room and I still couldn't sleep. I'd lie there with my hands folded over my stomach, listening to every sound: the housemaid, pipe settling, Luca coughing in his sleep down the hall, the fridge humming like it knew something was wrong. And through it all, her silence. Elena hadn't said much since that talk in the kitchen. She moved through the house like a ghost. She still got the kids dressed, packed their lunches, tied Anna's shoes with that same little double-loop trick only she could do. But she wouldn't meet my eyes. Not really. We became strangers living under the same roof. The routine went on autopilot. The machine of parenthood didn't stop just because the marriage had fallen apart. One night, I found myself sitting in the garage, surrounded by bins we hadn't touched in years. Holiday decorations, baby clothes we couldn't bring ourselves to throw out, photo albums from before the smartphones took over. I opened one. It was from our first Christmas in the Raleigh house. Elena in a red sweater holding baby Victor like the most precious thing she'd ever touched. Her smile was real. I remember that day. I remember thinking, God, how did I get so lucky? Now, I couldn't look at that face without wondering when it started. Not the cheating, the detachment. The drift. The slow erosion that neither of us noticed until the ground gave out beneath our feet. And the worst part? I didn't hate her. I wanted to. I tried to. But hating her would have been easier than this dull, lingering ache. This missing of a woman who was still sleeping just down the hall. I started replaying everything. The missed signs. The late-night text messages she said were just group chats. The sudden gym kick. The new perfume. The nights she seemed distant and said she was just tired. I saw it all now. In perfect, painful clarity. But I hadn't asked. I'd told myself not to be paranoid. That she was loyal. That we were solid. That we had 3 kids in 9 years and no real reason to fall apart. And maybe that was the lie I told myself, that history guarantees security. It doesn't. On Friday, I came home to find Elena sitting on the back porch. She was wrapped in the blanket we kept by the couch. The sun was going down, painting the sky in soft pinks and quiet regrets. She looked up as I stepped outside but didn't speak. I sat next to her. We just watched the sunset. I miss us, she said quietly after a long silence. I didn't respond. Because I missed us too. But us didn't exist anymore. Not really. That night, I stood in the hallway outside our bedroom. I could hear her crying through the door. Not loudly. Not performative. Just quiet, exhausted sobs. I leaned against the wall, forehead resting against the cool paint, and for the first time in weeks, I let myself feel it. Not the rage. Not the suspicion. Just the sorrow. The raw, aching loss of the woman I married. Of the life I thought we had. Of the future I can't picture anymore. I didn't plan for it to happen that night. But the truth doesn't care about plans. It waits, heavy and bloated, until the quiet finally splits wide enough for it to come pouring out. It was a Tuesday. I'd gotten home late. Work was chaos, quarterly reports, 2 managers out sick, and a fire in the warehouse that almost became literal. I walked through the front door, already frayed, already worn. The kids were watching a movie. Elena was in the kitchen, making pasta. The smell of garlic should have felt comforting. Instead, it just reminded me how much I used to look forward to coming home. Now I counted every step through the door like I was entering a crime scene. She looked up when I walked in, wiped her hands on a towel. "Hey," she said. Like we were fine. I nodded. Set my bag down. Took off my shoes. We ate dinner with the kids. Talked about school, Halloween costumes, Anna's fascination with frogs. It all felt so normal it made my skin itch. When the kids went to bed, she came into the living room and sat down across from me. Knees pulled to her chest. Her hair up. No makeup. She looked younger, somehow. Vulnerable. Like the girl I met in Chicago, sitting on the floor of my apartment, eating takeout straight from the box. "Can we talk?" she asked. Something about the way she said it told me this wasn't another apology. This was something else. "Sure," I said. Voice flat. "Guard up." She hesitated. "I've been thinking. I don't want to lose you." I said nothing. "I know I messed up," she went on. "I know you have every reason to leave. But maybe we could try counseling. Just try. For the kids. For us." I laughed. Not loudly. But it cut the air between us like a blade. "For us." I said. "You want me to sit in a room with a stranger while you tell them you had getting close with another man because I forgot to ask how your fitness class went?" She flinched. "That's not what I said." "No," I interrupted. "But it's what you meant. You're trying to turn this into some mutual failure. Like we both dropped the ball." She swallowed. "Didn't we?" I stood up so fast the couch creaked beneath me. "No," I said. "You don't get to do that. You don't get to spread the blame around like butter on toast. I didn't cheat. I didn't lie. I didn't sneak around in hotel elevators and text someone I barely knew about how alive I felt while my husband made dinner for our kids." Her voice cracked. "I didn't mean to hurt you. But you did, Elena." I paced. I couldn't sit anymore. My body had more truth than my mouth could handle. "You hurt me in ways I didn't even know I could be hurt. You didn't just break trust, you broke reality. You turned me into a man who doubts everything. Every smile. Every touch. Every damn memory." She stood too, eyes red, voice shaking. "I was lost, Mark. I didn't know who I was anymore. I was drowning in diapers and school runs and meal prep, and you were just so far away all the time." I stared at her. And in that moment I saw it. Not guilt. Not sorrow. But justification. She was still writing herself the role of the misunderstood woman. The neglected wife. The sympathetic character in her own little drama. And I was done. "I'm calling the lawyer tomorrow," I said. Silence. "Is that it?" she asked. 10 years, and that's it?" "No," I said, calmer now. 10 years was everything. And you ended it the moment you put another man's name in your phone under a fake contact. The first night at Aaron's was worse than I expected. He gave me a guest room with laundry folded in the corner, a ceiling fan that squeaked like it had asthma, and a mattress that sagged so much it made my back question my life choices. Still, it was better than being in that house. Better than listening to Alina crying in the next room, knowing that each tear was half a second late. Aaron tried to cheer me up with beer and leftover barbecue. He said, "This will pass. One day you'll laugh about it." I stared at him for a long second. I doubt it, I said. I'm pretty sure I'll be the man in his 60s who stops talking every time someone mentions the word marriage. He laughed. I did not laugh. That night I lay awake and looked at the ceiling, trying to remember the last time I was truly happy. Truly happy before the suspicion, before the betrayal, before my life began to play on two tracks, what I thought and what was really happening. I couldn't even tell which was which. That scared me the most. The next morning at 6:47, I was sitting in Aaron's kitchen, drinking coffee from a gas station and scrolling through photos on my phone. Pictures of Alina holding Anna in the hospital. A family selfie on the beach. A picture of her laughing when I tried to light the grill and almost lost my eyebrows. I didn't delete anything. I just looked at them as artifacts from a life I no longer have access to. The irony was rich. We had built this beautiful life together, our marriage looked perfect from the outside, and now I couldn't even look at the people in the photos without wondering who they really were. Aaron came in, scratching the back of his head. You're up early. I didn't sleep. Do you want some eggs? No, I said. I want a time machine and a taser. He laughed again. I think he meant well, but everything he said bounced off me like I was behind glass. Later that day, I finally saw Alina's name appear on my phone. I didn't answer it. She wrote, "Just checking to see if you were okay. The kids are asking where you are." She replied, "I miss you." I did not answer, because I didn't miss her. I missed who she was. Or maybe just who I thought she was. By Thursday, I talked to a lawyer. I laid it all out. Custody, assets, deadlines. And what was the strangest thing? I felt nothing during this conversation. Only numb efficiency. As if it was a job I had been assigned to dismantle your life in 12 steps or less. The lawyer said I had a strong case. The children had a stable routine. I was earning more money. Everything we owned was in my name. But he warned me about the courts. They are not interested in deception, he said. They are interested in stability. Consistency. I thanked him and hung up the phone. I walked into the living room where Aaron was lying on the couch watching Shark Tank. I asked him, "Do you think any of these guys invest in broken marriages?" He raised his beer. "Depends, how big is your suffering?" It ended on a Tuesday. Not with yelling. Not with door slams or cruel words hurled across a kitchen table. Just a quiet knock at the door and Elena standing there with trembling hands holding a manila envelope. No makeup. Eyes ringed with the kind of sleep you don't get when your heart's still broken. "I didn't want to mail them," she said softly. It felt wrong. I nodded. The envelope was light, but it felt like it weighed 100 pounds. Inside were the final custody agreements. The closing lines of a decade-long chapter that started with champagne toasts and whispered promises in a hotel room with peeling wallpaper. "Did you read them?" I asked. She nodded. I signed. Everything. Silence filled the space between us like fog. "I didn't think it would hurt this much," she said. "Even now. Even after everything." I didn't respond. I couldn't. I was afraid that if I opened my mouth, the grief would come pouring out and drown us both. But I looked at her, and for a split second I saw her again. The real her. Not the woman who broke me. Not the stranger from the affair. Just Elena. 24, barefoot in our first apartment, dancing to Fleetwood Mac while the rice boiled over. "I never stopped loving you," she whispered. "I did," I said. "And it broke something in both of us." She nodded. A slow, aching nod. "That's fair." She turned, walked down the porch steps without looking back. I closed the door behind her. Rested my forehead against it. Let the silence settle around me like dust in a room no one lives in anymore. That night, I sat on the floor of the kids' room, surrounded by their mess, crayons without caps, Legos underfoot, storybooks half open on the rug. They were asleep, all three. Anna with her stuffed bunny under one arm. Luca breathing through his mouth like always. Victor curled up in a blanket like he was on a spaceship to Mars. I looked at them and saw everything that mattered. Everything I didn't lose. Everything I couldn't afford to lose. And I broke. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just tears, slow and bitter, spilling down my face like something sacred was finally spilling out. All the pretending. All the "I'm fine." All the holding it together so no one else had to bleed. It leaked out quietly while the glow-in-the-dark stars flickered on the ceiling above me. A week later, I moved into the new place. Townhome. Small. Clean. Mine. I gave the kids their own room. Painted it a soft green. Let them pick stickers to put on the closet door. Victor picked a galaxy set. Anna chose frogs. Luca just wanted one that said awesome. We made pancakes the first night. Too much syrup. Too much noise. And yet, for the first time in a long time, I felt peace, not because everything was perfect, but because nothing was hidden. That Saturday, I found a folded piece of construction paper on my nightstand. Anna's handwriting, shaky and sweet. I love you, Daddy. This house is happy now. I sat down on the edge of the bed and just held it. Held it like it was the most fragile thing I'd ever touched. And cried again, but this time it felt different. Not like falling. Like letting go. Maybe I won't love again for a long time. Maybe I'll always carry the scar. But I'm done asking why. I'm done looking backward. The life I had is gone. But the one I'm building? It's honest. It's quiet. It's mine. And in this small, imperfect, beautifully broken house, we are happy.